Developing an organizational process mindset, or if you prefer, process-aware culture, is both the most important and hardest thing to do on the process management journey. Making the idea of process-based management resonate with an organization requires mindful and well-designed efforts. If the organization doesn't think process, it won't do process. The likelihood that organizations, individuals, or their teams will adopt process-centric approaches depends, not unreasonably, on what they think will happen if they do. Minds are often hard to change, but it can be done. And once changed, minds are likely to stay changed for the same reason. Process-based management can be challenging. The good news is that for the same reason, it's both hard to establish and easy to sustain. It's all in the mind. I think it really is all about mindset. 90% mindset, 10% tool set. You might convince me that it's 80-20, maybe even 70-30, but you'd never get me to reverse the numbers. And we need the tool set, of course, so all of the software and the methods, all of those things that we use to do process-based management. But if we're not going to have a shared mindset about process-based management, then we wouldn't even pick up the tools. So I think it's 90% mindset and 10% tool set. And we need 100% to make it work. So what do we mean by a process-based mindset? Well, that's going to vary a lot from organization to organization, but I think these are some characteristics that would be useful to have. I think you need to be measurement friendly because process is about performance. Right? We're going to do good process management so we can then do good process improvement. And to do both of those, we need to know about process performance. And the whole point of the exercise is to improve performance. So we've got to be measuring. So if you're not measurement friendly, then you're not going to like process-based management. Community focused because it's about collaboration, isn't it? We say that we create, accumulate and deliver value across the organization in those end-to-end processes. It's about us, it's about we, it's not about me. So it's got to be about the community, not just about my piece. And quality is what it's about, isn't it? We're trying to improve the quality of outcomes for all of our processes, which is to say the quality of the execution of our strategy. So we have to be really motivated by a desire to improve quality and continuous improvement. Continuous. We've got to be up for lots of change, and it's got to be happening all the time. We don't want to be in a position where we say, boy, it's going to be good next year when we stop changing, because when we stop changing is when we stopped improving. So we've got to be welcoming of change, and some of those changes need to be big. So there's going to be some challenges. We'll have lots of small changes, but if all we're ever doing is small changes, there will come a time when the small changes become difficult, and we'll need some step function of change. So we need a few challenges along the way, and we've got to welcome those. And of course, we need to be action-oriented. So we need to be of a mindset that says we've got to get this done. The most wasteful thing we can do is a process improvement project that makes lots of great recommendations that don't lead to change. What was the point of that? So action has got to follow analysis. So that's a kind of set of characteristics that we might have in an organization with a good process mindset or a good process-aware culture, if you prefer. But what might that feel like? What might it look like? What sort of evidence could we look for to see if we do have process mindset that's effective and helping us with process-based management? Well, let's have a look at three scenarios, three bits of evidence that we might discover if we were looking inside an organization to see if there was a process mindset. So I think the first thing I'd be looking for is how often process thinking comes into management. What we'd like to see, isn't it? Here's a problem. Okay. And the next question is, which process are we talking about? Process is not an afterthought. If we're looking at problems, then we're looking at problems that are happening in processes. So which process are we talking about? Let's get all of the people involved in executing that process together, and then let's address it together. So how much collaboration is going on in the management of our processes, which are, of course, about collaboration? And then I also want to see an extension of that, I suppose, but how much executive involvement is there? Sometimes you see lots of process work going on in an organization, but not at the C level, not even at senior management levels, perhaps. It's seen to be something else. So a real process mindset in an organization goes from top to bottom and left to right. The mindset might be different at different levels, and that might be appropriate, but we need everyone to be thinking process if we're going to do process. So how much executive involvement is there? If we could be a fly on the wall and just having a look, then I'd want to be ticking the box for executive involvement as often as possible. And here's another thought. Every time we bring on new people, we onboard new staff, do we tell them about the process view of the organization? That would be great evidence for a process mindset, wouldn't it? That would tell us that the organisation thinks this is actually important. And we've gone to a lot of trouble to describe ourselves as a set of processes, and when new people come on board, we're going to explain it to them. And we're going to be very interested in the questions they ask, because they might have some insights into how our process architecture has been formed. They might be able to contribute on day one because they haven't been involved in all the previous conversations. Sometimes that new view of a process architecture is powerful. So how do we build a process mindset? How are we going to do that? Well, it's a lot about people talking to people and people interacting and working with people. So the soft skills, the interpersonal skills obviously are going to be important. I think also when we start to get groups of people and want them to collaborate and work together, particularly when we're asking them to work together to find problems. And that's what we're doing. That's the precursor to improvement, isn't it? To find the problem. Then we need to take steps to increase the trust levels within those groups and between groups. And we need to remove the uncertainties and the fears. Often when we're doing process improvement work, people are looking around to say, whose job's at risk here? Or we want people to come along to some review and say, these are the things going wrong in my area. Now, we're not often very good at that. We're very good at saying, these are the things that are going well in my area, or everything's perfect in my piece of the process, but the rest of you need to fix some things. But to come along and have the trust and the empowerment to say, okay, these are the things that are going wrong in my area, help me to fix them. Can we actually do that? Because that's what a mindset would let us do. And also, I think we need to identify those people in the organisation who are the influencers. Now, they may not just be in the senior executive ranks, or obviously they're there, but in other parts of the organisation there might be people who are actually pretty good at making things happen. They've been there for a long time, they're respected for whatever reason. So you need to be careful about those people. Because they might also have a negative view, so you need to deal with that. They're not necessarily going to be positive about the process. So we train for the soft skills and we increase trust and we get people to work together, and then we identify those influences and put them to work exercising their influence. Then the other thing we could be doing is building communities of interest, just enabling people to get together and talk about processes. We provide the information in some sort of library that's easy to access, not just gigabytes of information, but some way to access it in a useful way. Success stories, we want lots of those, and we want to publish them. We want to talk about them. We want people to understand that they exist. We need Process Improvement Project, PIP, feedback. So if we're doing process improvement projects, then let's tell people about them. Let's say what worked and what didn't. Let's give people some sort of insight into what's happening in those projects, because we want to encourage them to participate as well, of course. But we really want to be able to show the outcomes, the positive outcomes of a PIP. So to summarise then, if we're going to do process, we're going to have to think process, and we want that to happen for individuals and their teams and the whole organisation at every level of the organisation. We need a shared mindset or a process-aware culture. If we're going to do process, we need to think process. And we need an active plan to develop this mindset. It's not going to happen magically to the level we want it to anyway. So we need a plan. We need to say these are the changes we've got to make and this is the initiatives to make those changes. So it's got to be active, and we've got to make sure that we work on the plan. And we need to have people talking to each other and asking questions and engaging. We want engagement from as many people as possible, because once people understand that they can engage and it's useful to do so, then we're rapidly building the right kind of mindset. And it's always true, that success breeds success. So we need to demonstrate regularly and continually that the whole process view is worth it, because it tells everyone that, okay, this is a little different, this is a little bit uncomfortable at times, but it's worth it, because in the end, it lets us do the sort of good process management that contributes to good process improvement. And that's our objective, isn't it, in the whole of our process-based management.